Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Crossover Deep Dive. Today, I am here with the wonderful Ekaterina Shelehova. Hi, Ekaterina.
Hi, Natasha. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I've listened to your voice for so long, so it's just lovely to be able to have a conversation with you.
Thank you for listening. Wow. Yeah, I'm really excited to chit chat today with you about everything. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm definitely going to pick your brain a little bit about some of the things you do vocally because it's so interesting. But let's start how it all began for you. You've been singing since you were 3 years old. So, what has that journey been like? Was there ever a time you thought you weren't going to be a musician, or was it just kind of very clear always that this was your path?
Honestly, I believe most of the time it was quite a direct line of my path. I never really strayed from it because yeah, since I was 3, I sang on stage and I recorded songs and I never really even questioned it. There were definitely times in my life where I wanted to stray out and become a veterinarian, for example. That was one of my biggest passions is animals. Then I wanted to be a zoologist, but then it always came back to my passion to music, and I realized I could not live without it. And I knew that if I picked any other job, I would end up being a bit miserable because I would always revert back to the music. So yeah, I think there were a few little, blips here and there, but in general, it's always been a direct path.
And how did your parents think to put you into music lessons? Was it a musical family, or what made them think that you would be suited?
My whole family is either doctors or engineers, so I don't know where I
Okay.
popped out from. But my uncle, he worked for the radio, and he wrote little jingles for the radio for commercials, and so that's actually how I kind of started, as well as um, in my kindergarten class, I was around 3 years old, where we started to do little performances for Christmas and for little events like that. And my vocal teacher, Ludmila Marksovna, at the time noticed that I had a good ear and I picked up melodies really well, really quickly. And so while the kids were sleeping during nap time, she would pull me out of nap time and she would give me lessons. And so it wasn't really, um, it was a lot of people that kind of found that I guess um I guess my ability to sing, all of those little things that you need in order to become a singer, and they all kind of shaped who I am today. I mean, my dad is a huge lover of music, and so when he
Mm.
heard that I could sing at 3, he was super excited too, and so they were my biggest fans and my biggest kind of support system throughout all my life because they always knew that that's what I wanted to do and that's what I should be doing, I guess.
I think it's so interesting too, because on your YouTube channel, it tracks your journey. So they have some very young clips of
Yeah.
you all the way up. How did you get involved in opera and classical singing?
So when I started out singing in Russia, I did a lot of folk, so Russian folk, traditional folk music. And you'll hear that in the influence that I put into my music today. But then when I moved to Canada when I was 6 years old with my family, um, I began to take lessons at the Conservatory of Music. And there they teach all the classics, Schubert, all the art songs. And so I started to sing in a more kind of classical way. And then when I was about 10 years old, because I was part of the Hamilton Children's Choir for a long time, and I'm super proud to say that because they're an incredible, incredible choir that was run by Zinfira Polos at the time. And but around age 11, 12, I was pulled out of the choir because I stuck out like a sore thumb because of my resonance, sort of.
Yeah.
And so at one point, there was a vocal teacher that came to listen to the choir, and she said Katerina should pursue or should try to pursue opera because I believe that she would excel in that. And so I started studying with David Varshabed and Alexandra Pasco, who are both wonderful, incredible opera singers. And I was very young when I started, but my passion for opera just kind of grew super quickly because even with the choir, we sang in the little kids choir with Opera Hamilton. So we sang in Carmen, we sang in Tosca, and it just kind of in putting theater together with music is something that just opened up a whole new world for me, and so I just became a passionate lover of opera. Sorry, that was
And tell us, you actually went to Italy, right? And you studied at the Conservatory of Milan, I believe, for bachelor's and master's. And I feel like university is such a mixed bag for people. They either have an amazing experience or it's like it turns them off of, some things about the traditional way of doing music. So what was it like for you? Were you really happy with the performances you got to do, the repertoire you got to do during that time?
Well, I was very lucky because all my teachers were experimentalists. I even had a
Love it.
class that was called improvisation, and
Mm,
there were only like four of us in the class. Nobody took that course. I don't know why, because it was one of my favorite courses in the entire 5 years that I was there. But it was with an incredible maestro, David Gualtieri, and we would just improvise poetry and put it to music, and there would be a guitarist and a pianist, and we did all these concerts. And in general, I had such a incredible time at the conservatory, but of course there was that little nudging of, we need to stick to the to the classical way of
right.
doing things. So I mean, I think just taking everything, um keeping your wits about and just kind of understanding what they're trying to say, but also just trying to stay true to yourself. And, for me, it was a great experience, and I loved the Conservatory of Milan. It was beautiful there. And I mean, it was so incredible because you would be walking down these halls and knew that Verdi at some point walked these halls. And yeah, I think that was already in itself very magical. So
Yeah, all the history that's there. It's
yeah,
inspirational,
yeah.
I'm sure. But when
Yeah.
did you start doing more experiments? I know, again, on your YouTube channel, you have different kinds of songs, but you mentioned this past in folk that you grew up with. It was part of your heritage. So when did you start going, I'm still going to perform opera, but I want to try experimenting doing new sounds?
So I started writing my own music when I was around 16. And it kind of just, I would write it and then I would put it away because I didn't really know what to do with it at the time because I was so focused on classical performance and opera and everything. And then during COVID, there was a point, I think every artist had that like breaking
Yep.
point. I think we all did. And so my breaking point was, screw it. I'm just gonna do what I want. And I picked up from, the place where I left when I was 16. I started writing new music, um, incorporating different genres together, which is something that I've always done, and but then just kind of solidifying it. And then my performance on Italia's Got Talent with Earth Melodies was kind of the pivotal moment where I showcased what it was that I was kind of that was brooding in my mind and everywhere, um, for such a long time. And so that was kind of the release party of all of that, and then everything just kind of snowballed from there.
So this is the part I'm so fascinated to chat with you about because I think, um, as singers, we start talking, and I think what we try to do in this program sometimes is break things down and say, soprano, what does that mean for people that may not be part of this world? But with you, I find like you do so many different things, like the way that your voice is changing. It feels like maybe you're even like using places where your voice would break or some guttural sounds and to create this whole range of palette of sounds, right? So can you explain a little bit? I know it might be hard to do all the things, but obviously you have the opera sound. What are some of the other sounds? Is it like throat singing, like Mongolian throat singing? What are you using to create those amazing sounds?
Yeah, so throat singing is definitely one of the styles that I've kind of incorporated into my
Yeah.
music. I've heard it from many different cultures. So I heard it from more like in even like some native tribes here in Canada, like the Inuit people,
Yes.
and Mongolian chanting that I've heard since I was a child because my parents are from Kazakhstan, and so that was an influence that I've heard since I was very, very small. And so I kind of just created my own mix of it. So it's not really taken from one specific culture, but instead I kind of just incorporated everything I've learned throughout my life and just created something of my own.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, there's the more like crossover type of singing, which is still with the support and diaphragm of, an operatic sound, but with a little less of a vibrato and a little bit on that high register and not kind of creating that really strong, round operatic sound. Um, I also sing a lot on like in my chest voice in a very like old traditional Slavic style. So I incorporate all of those all of those things, and it really depends on the song. Sometimes I'll do more of this, more of that, or I'll omit this and just do that. So it depends.
I feel like you must have incredible vocal freedom though to be able to switch like that. You have to have balance in your voice, right? Because otherwise it would be something that's quite difficult to within one song make these changes.
Mhm. Yes, it's definitely it takes a lot of concentration, to be
Yeah.
quite honest with you. Because yeah, every single technique is a little different, and the placement, especially on the mouth and everything, is a little different. But what connects it all, I think, is the breath. And
Mhm.
so as long as I'm taking the proper breaths and I'm using the proper diaphragmatic support, and I'm connecting kind of solidly to the earth when I'm singing, it makes things a lot easier and the transitions a lot easier. But yeah, it takes some concentration to be like, "Hey, we're switching now. Switch." So,
I like what you said about like incorporating different cultures, obviously musical cultures. Um, I think one of the things I've noticed, so like my family's a melting pot. So we have like, some people from Ukraine, some from Ecuador, but there's a lot more in common than you realize. Sometimes you wouldn't
mhm,
think of it. And then you go, oh, wow, there's a lot in common to these cultures, actually.
yeah.
And one comment I see for you is people are always saying it's like you're calling to the ancestors. And it's people from different heritages, right? But they're all
Mhm.
feeling that sense of the earth and all that you bring to it.
Yeah, that's probably the most magical thing about being able to create this kind of music is the fact
Yeah.
that I can speak to not just one group of people, but to people as a whole, because in the end, I feel like music is that one language that, I mean, it's so cliche, so cheesy to say, but I mean,
It's
music
true.
is definitely the language that everybody speaks and everybody understands. And so incorporating a lot of kind of the same, like a melting pot of cultures, you really end up speaking to everyone because everyone can find something of their own in it. And I've had people reach out to me that say, "Hey, I felt this with your music," and someone else that says the polar opposite,
Mm.
with, what they feel. And I think that's so beautiful that you can connect with people, with one universal language. And I think that's so magical. So,
Can you tell us now a little bit about the process of writing songs? You've been doing it for a while, but how do you do it? Is it very organized? Is it very inspiration on, as you get it on the fly? No.
so I think it really depends. I've written songs in an hour before, and then I've written songs that took a couple of weeks. Um, and it always depends. There's sometimes you write lyrics first, and then you end up writing a melody for them, or vice versa. You end up you write the melody, and then you write the lyrics as you go. There's really no real structure because I feel like music in general, I've never, thankfully not yet, I don't know, maybe one day, but I've never had that pressure of, having to sit down and write a song. Like right now, we have to sit down and write a song. Of course, I've had writing sessions with the incredible Ron Lapata, with who I'm producing my new album, by the way. Mhm. And so we have writing sessions where, of course, you come in to write a song, but even those are so fluid and so relaxed. And sometimes we've had jam sessions where, he'll play a few chords and then bam, a song comes out. So it really comes down to just what you're feeling in the moment and what feels right. For me, though, personally, I am a little bit more of a melody based person. I've never really been great at writing lyrics. Most of my lyrics are "See the bird in the tree, he is singing to me." You know, so that's as beautiful as I can make things sound. Unfortunately, I'm not a person of beautiful words, but I do feel like I am very comfortable with writing melodies, and so a lot of the time I'll write melodies and then lyrics will come afterwards. But there have been cases where I've written lyrics, and then they just, the melody came afterwards. So it really depends. Depends.
Oh my, sorry, my bulldog is joining us here. But can you tell me, when you're writing songs, do you physically write them out, or do you remember the chords and maybe do a little audio note and come back to them later?
No, I have the memory of a goldfish, so I
Okay.
unfortunately have to write everything down. Um, sometimes I'll be walking down the street because I sing to myself all the time because I'm crazy, but I sing to myself all the time, and so I end up creating melodies once in a while. And so yeah, I'll record them on my phone, and then I'll just come back to it later, and then I'll write down the chords and I'll kind of set it up. Um, but yeah, I have to always write it down because if I play it once, I will never play it the same way ever again, and I will forget it. So I always be careful of that. Always have to record beforehand. So yeah,
Thank God for all the modern, like, recording
I
devices that
know.
we have, honestly. Um, so you mentioned it before, but you did have this incredible experience where you were featured on Italy's Got Talent and also Bulgaria's Got Talent. So what are
Mhm.
some of the things from that experience that have stood out to you, in your career so far?
So both of those performances, Italy's Got Talent probably being the biggest, um, it definitely gave me a big push, of course, on the internet, and it really gave me a lot of opportunities. So with with Italia's Got Talent, I genuinely came in not really knowing what to expect. I didn't really know even if they were going to play me in a good or bad light because I was just doing something that I felt was creative and I felt like it was something that I wanted to say, but I didn't really know how it was going to be taken. I had a few influences in my life at the time that said, this is don't do this, don't that's going to look weird. You're going to be a laughing stock. And so honestly, like I didn't really know. And so when it came out on social media and it exploded, it definitely did help me a lot with creating connections and meeting new people um and even joining the band Era because Eric Levy actually found me on Instagram, and then he reached out and he heard my performance of Earth Melodies, and so lots of things happened thanks to that. And in general, um, both of the experiences were really positive, and I really liked just the experience itself and being there and filming. And I thought it was a lot of fun. It was nice to see kind of behind the scenes of what happens because I was always a huge fan of these shows when I was a child, so I would always watch them. And back then when they were on TV, like I mean they're still on TV, but back when everybody watched TV, everybody would sit down on Friday night and watch Italia, like America's Got Talent or something. So to really be in that and submersed in all of that that's happening backstage was really, really eye-opening and really interesting, really cool.
And it sounds like too the preparation you had going to school and everything prepared you because like you said, it's a massive push in that moment. But then it seems like if the artist doesn't have the will to go on, then it just kind of fades away and they're on to next season's candidate, right? So it's a lot of
Mhm.
you then taking the reins and moving forward.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. It was I like I said, I didn't really expect much. And so when that happened, it really did give me a push. And it gave me a push in the sense that I I felt um like I was doing the right thing in moving out my own music into the world. Because before that, it was always kind of, I was a little shy about it because I came from a very classical background in music, and so even proposing this to my teacher, I would never ever do that. Um, and so yeah, it definitely gave me a push to keep going and to do what I do, and yeah, it's been great. It's been great so far.
And did you get any reactions from anyone in that world, like your teachers that now saw you in this new light?
Yes. Thankfully, all of the reactions were very positive. My vocal teacher did seem very concerned with the throat singing because, of course, if it's not done properly, it could absolutely damage the vocal cords. But so can really anything if it's not done properly. And she was just very taken aback because she's never really heard me create those sounds before. So she's like, "What are you doing? What's
Yeah.
that? Where'd you learn that? I didn't teach you that." Um, so, but in general, it was a very positive response, which I also wasn't really expecting. And I think most of my teachers also kind of cliche, but I've always kind of been the black sheep of all my classes and all my
Mhm.
just because I've always wanted to experiment. I've always wanted to kind of, even within the arias and the operas that I learned, I would always try to kind of get away with a few things of my own. And of course, I would always be told, no, you can't do that. And I was like, what, why? And I would always ask that question. I'd be like, why can't we? Why? And so I think most of them knew at one point that something was going to happen, if not that, something else. So none of them were surprised. They all kind of saw it coming. So it was good in that way.
It's a
So
very validating experience.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about your collaborations. You mentioned the band Eras, and I know this year you've also collaborated with Nathan. I'm going to kill his name, Pacheco, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell us about
So
those collabs.
oh my gosh, yes. So with Era, it was definitely a dream come true because I was a fan of Era. Sorry, I keep playing with my hair. You know why? Because it's like this little piece right here. What is going on? What is that?
And it
That is
only happens when you're on camera. The rest of the time, you're just
I
fine.
know. I know. Like why? I just look like I'm a mullet now, but that's okay. We're just gonna it's fashion. So with Era, it was a dream come true because I listened to their music since I was a kid. So I remember receiving that first email, and forwarding it to my dad, and I said, "I don't know if this is a prank or not, but can you check?" And, he's like, "I don't know how I'm supposed to check, but I think this is real." And so I actually, got on a phone call with Eric, and, I came to audition sort of for the band. I went into the studio, we recorded a few things, and then yeah, and then I became kind of part of the Live Experience tour, and we did our first tour a couple of years ago, and the next tour is actually this February, and all tickets are obviously on the Era website. They can be found through there. And it was a spectacular, life-changing experience. And then I met Nathan Pacheco about also 2 years ago at a concert that we did in Miami, and we stayed in touch because I adored his voice. I thought he had one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard, and I've always kind of after that moment vowed that we would do something together. And then that moment came because Leo Z, he actually wrote a song, a duet, and we ended up recording it. Me recording it in Italy, him recording it, I believe, around Nashville. Um, and then our paths crossed a couple of months later in Nashville, and we recorded a music video for the song. And it was such a wonderful experience. And Nathan is such an incredible person, human being, and performer, just spectacular performer. So it was an honor to perform alongside him on this song. So it was nice. I was really happy about it.
You guys sound wonderful together as well.
Thank you.
Hopefully, you do more stuff. Can you tell us about the other solo releases you did? So you did Fly Away, and then your most recent one is My Mother Told Me. Did you write both of those, or?
So Fly Away is an original of mine, and that was actually the first song that I wrote when I was 16.
Okay, wow.
Um, and I wrote it for piano and voice, and then I, kind of put it aside because I wanted an arrangement for it. But it's hard to kind of explain your vision when you're 16 and you don't really know really what your vision is yet.
Yeah.
Um, and then I started collaborating with Emmanuel Tedeschi, which I did Now We Are Free with, which is on all the musical platforms as well. And he arranged the track for me, and it was everything that I had ever imagined. So it was incredible to finally release that song into the world. And My Mother Told Me is actually an old, I guess, folk song, I would say. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm so sorry, but that's what I researched. Okay. I'm sorry. So no, I did not write that song. It was heavily requested. So I do get a lot of requests to perform different covers, and so I try to stay true to releasing as much original content as possible. But because I do get these requests and I also really like these songs, I also try to release a few covers of my favorites. And so this song was used in Vikings, the show Vikings,
Oh, that's
and
so cool.
yeah, and so I loved that show up until a specific season where someone specific dies. I'm not going to spoil it, but broke my heart. Could not watch it after that. But
Fair.
but yeah, it was always a favorite of mine, and I recorded a little like a little thing in my room a while ago of it, and so many people after that reached out and asked for me to record it properly. So I did with Panos Taparidis in Greece. So that was nice too.
Yeah, it sounds so beautiful. And I think there's so much incredible music that it's like you're saying, it would be hard to only do originals sometimes, like even though original is going to be the best, probably the best fit for your voice, right? Because you're writing for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you did ABBA's I Have a Dream. And it just sounds so
Mhm.
beautiful. So it's like, why not, right? Just add it into the mix.
Yeah, I think that I'm growing, and I feel like my composition skills are definitely, maturing and be, creating bec taking shape, let's say.
Yeah.
But I never want to, ignore the classics, and I always like to give a little extra with them, and kind of uh, so for example, I try to take sometimes old music, old songs that have maybe been kind of forgotten, and just try to give them a new life. For example, At the Dawn is a very old traditional Russian folk song, which is completely unknown even to Russians. It's not a very well known song, and it's such a shame because it's such a beautiful song. It's one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard, and so I wanted to give it a new life. And so when I do covers, I try to give a piece of myself in them, even though they're not written by me, but try to give my personality in them as well. And also just sometimes bring those songs that maybe are not listened to anymore an extra push as well.
That's beautiful. Can you tell us about, you mentioned and kind of teased your album. So tell us when that's possibly going to come out and any other projects that are on the horizon right now.
Yes, so my album is now done, and I'm over the moon happy with how it turned out. It was produced by Ron Lopata and Thomas Salter in Nashville, and I was so lucky, so absolutely lucky to have them both work on my album because you know these two masterminds just created something I think super super beautiful. And so we're hoping to release it in 2015,
I wish.
2025.
I wish.
Ah, the time flies.
I know.
So we're gonna hopefully release it in 2025. Well, not hopefully, we will. Um, and it's really an exciting project because it is based around um, kind of the idea of fairy tales, not necessarily the kind of Cinderella happy ones, but more the Grimm brothers fairy tales. And so there's some dark, there's some light, there's some creepy, there's some happy, there's a lot of kind of colors that are going to be on this album. And so I'm really excited to share it because I think that it showcases exactly what I want to say with my music, and I think it'll be really nice to finally release that. This year I have a few new originals coming. So there's an original coming in a couple of weeks, and then another original coming at the end of October, and as well as an original Christmas song that I'm writing with Ron Lopata and Andrea Koziol. And yeah, so there's a lot of things cooking, and it's always exciting to look ahead and to share new things. And I just hope that uh, I don't know what I hope for. I just I don't know where. Sometimes I say things and then I forget where I'm going with that. But I'm just really happy with the process. And the big one, the big album is 2000 and not 15, 2025.
Well, I'm really looking forward to hearing that, and also the Christmas song, because I feel like there's so many beautiful songs that we do all the time, but then I have like 15 Holy Nights on my playlist, so I'm always excited when there's something original to add to that mix, you know?
Yeah, I hope that I hope it can take its place in some playlists, some Christmas playlists as well. Um, and I just, I love Christmas music. I grew up listening to Christmas music like all year round. For example, Michael Bublé's Christmas album, I
Oh,
listen to
yes.
it constantly. Like I can sing the whole. I'm obsessed with that album. Michael, hit me up. So not in that way. I just meant like I just like like as
For
friends.
collaboration,
Just as
yes, yes.
friends. Not like that. But yeah, so I'm excited to kind of add also my own idea to it. And yeah, I hope it makes some playlists as well. And I hope it warms it warms the hearts of many this Christmas season.
Well, thank you so much for being on and chatting to me, Ekaterina. We'll have your information on the screen for those who'd like to learn more. And I hope you'll come back when the album is ready.
Thank you. I would love to. That would be amazing. Yeah.
So, everyone, join us back next week. And until then, you can find more information in the show notes. Thank you so much.